Hello, friends. Waiting for a few people to catch up here. You want to see me really up close? No. My thumb, there you go. That'll do. My gloved hand, that'll do. All right. Silliness around here, no way. Never let it be said that we missed an opportunity to be serious. All right, hello, my name's Dan. This is Daily Art Adventure number, I forget already, 686. Can you believe it? I've done this 686 times, and I have a really fun assignment. I'm not out on the street, which I look forward to the next time I'm out on the street, but at the moment, I'm quite happy to be sitting here, butt in chair at drawing table, doing an illustration. Let me turn you around real quick and say, there we go. All right, I'm going to be doing a watercolor sketch. And let me show you, I just taught a class last Saturday. Let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see some recent samples of my watercolor sketch work. This is a real quick demo that I did at Cheap Joe's in Boone, North Carolina. And there's a shed in Beaufort that I had a bunch of photographs and I showed them to the class and they voted to do this one. So there's demo number 1, demo number 2. And I've got a third one here that I started and didn't finish of a 1953 or 4, I think, Chevy. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to finishing that one. So that's what a watercolor sketch looks like. And a little bit more information about this job. I have here a stack of about 10 or 12 pages of information from my client. My client is, I think it's okay for me to say this online. Yeah, hire this lady at McCrory, Kristen at McCrory Interiors up in Connecticut, Burlington, Connecticut. I'm sorry, I forget which town. All right, now what, again, just a little more background. Kristen stumbled upon somehow this watercolor painting I did of a wedding in Connecticut, and she decided, wait, I need some artwork done, so I'm going to call whoever did this. So she called me, and the rest, as they say, is history. Okay, watercolor sketch. What does that mean? Well, because I put the word sketch in it so I can get away with moida, so I can get away with anything. And here's what I'm going to get away with. I'm going to get away with beginning with watercolor pencils. That's not a watercolor pencil. These are watercolor pencils. And you'll just watch. All right, I start with the lightest color. Oh, and I don't have a pale blue here. Okay, I'm going to start with my normal one, pale yellow. Now, this is a light table, as you can see, and I'm going to turn off all my other lights. And now I should be able to, yeah, barely see my sketch. I think I have a copy of it over here somewhere. I printed this off on my, I did a sketch in pencil. Here we go. Here's my pencil sketch. Can you see it? Now you can't see it because I drawn. There we go. There's my pencil sketch. Then I scanned it into Photoshop, tweaked it 17 different ways and in Photoshop, and then printed it out. This is really, the technical term would be an architectural rendering. In this case, the architecture is an interior in a home. And forgive me if you can't see what I'm drawing right here. I can hardly see it myself, so. But I'm drawing with a yellow watercolor pencil, okay? That's the important part to keep in mind. Watercolor pencil, very light color. I'd actually thought that I might start this one with a pale blue, but then I got this particular set of watercolor pencils out, found out that there's not a light blue there, so no big deal. I'll start then with a pale yellow. You'll understand in a minute. By the way, if you want to watch me do this, a demo of this technique, if you want to watch me do these two sketches, forgive me, I know you can't see those, let me try to light it. If you want to watch me do, not that one, if you want to watch me do this one last Saturday, that's just a few days ago, 7 days ago, Daily Art Adventure number something or other that I can't remember. But feel free if you want to go back and look at that and sort of watch me do it fairly quickly in front of a live class. You can watch that. Now, if it looks to you like I'm drawing with this yellow pencil in a very sketchy, fast, loose manner, then you're paying attention. Good job. All I want to execute here with this yellow pencil is the major shapes, major lines. Details come subsequent to this. All right, I think I'm done. Let me switch lighting. And yeah, that'll do. Okay, now I'm going to go to my next darkest color, which in this case is going to be a pale green. So I'm going to turn my light table back on here, turn off these upper lights, and I think I'm already ready to go to my control grip. You see, did you notice that up until this point I've been holding my pencil what I call side saddle, drawing with my whole arm. But at least for part of this illustration now, I'm ready to go to my traditional control grip. Now, some of you might think that, well, don't you always want to be in control? And the short answer to that is no. Another word for control is, some other words for control are tight, uptight, minimal creativity. These are synonyms for your control grip, as I like to call it, your death control grip. And so no, most of the time, let me go back, I'm going back to my drawing grip now, as opposed to detail grip. When you hold the pencil in this manner, you're operating out of a different part of your brain than when you hold your pencil this way, okay? This right here, what I'm doing right now, is from childhood, young childhood, age 5, 6, 7, 8. You were watched over by teachers and parents who browbeat you into submission. That's a slight exaggeration, I hope. With some of you, it's not. If you went to one of those infamous Catholic schools where the nuns rapped on your knuckles with a ruler, and I'm not exaggerating. So when you hold it, a pencil, can you see what I'm doing? In this manner, your control grip, you're going back to Nunville. If you were in a Catholic school, which I was not, I've just heard about it. You're going back to a stage of your life where you were being forced, because you had to learn how to write, to survive, you know, to thrive in modern Western civilization. You have to be able to write. And so it was you don't remember it, most of you, but it was a somewhat painful experience because it didn't come naturally. you finally nailed it, and you've forgotten how painful it was for you to go through that process. But every time you hold your pencil or pen or brush in that grip, you're tapping into that history, into that same part of your brain. And that is a stultified, very non-creative, because it's the control part of your brain. Does that make sense? All right, I talk about this enough. That's enough. I want to go down that trail anymore. Oh yeah, I do. I want to go down a little bit more. So when I am watching somebody on YouTube who's got an art video and they're drawing and they hold their pen or pencil in that manner. Now a lot of you have said to me, well, I know somebody, I know this person, I know this and that and this and that person, and they're a fantastic drawer and they hold it that way. Okay, if you could see my face, I'm rolling my eyes. Nope. Fantastic compared to who? Compared to what? I tell you what, fantastic not compared to how good they could be if they would hold their drawing utensil in this side saddle manner. Doesn't mean that there aren't some really good drawers, but they would be better than they are if they would let go of their, what I'm in now, the control freak grip. And as you can imagine, this conversation very quickly spills over into what is good drawing and good painting. And those of you who are convinced that good drawing and good painting is capturing super tight realism, then no, you and I live on a completely different planet, and that's the end of that conversation. We're not even gonna, today, I don't even want to go there. All right, so these are watercolor pencils. Let me turn on these lights. There you go. Now I know you can see those lights now. I mean, you can see those lines now. And you'll notice how as soon as I start doing the drawing, in this case, in green on top of the yellow essentially psychologically disappears because it's a lighter color, and our eyes just go automatically and rather instantly to the darker color. We hardly even notice the lighter color anymore. But I'm using the lighter color to guide my darker color. I'm going to do this step at least one more time. I'm going to do one more drawing. Again, let me turn on those lights for a minute. I have pages and pages of reference, and one of these pages has lamps on it. There we go. There we go. Here's the lamp that I'm doing right here. So let me leave the light on for just a minute. Whoops, I had a tapered lampshade, and it is in a photograph. It is not tapered, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just counting how many bowls there are, so to speak, on this. Did you like the way I said that word? Bowls. Bowls. All right. And I talked to my client about pretty much all of these details. She does not know this is a show job or a spec job. At this point, she doesn't even know exactly what kind of chair is going to be going here. So I'm sort of left to my own devices to some degree, to some extent. Same thing with the rug that's on the floor. There's a fair degree of creative leeway, as is often the case with these architectural renderings. I think most of you know, I've worked as a freelance illustrator for several decades in my middle years, and enjoyed it very much. Did well as an illustrator. and made the big break to fine art, if you will. The difference between illustration and fine art is in illustration you're getting paid. With fine art, you're not getting paid unless somebody buys your painting. So fine art is a good deal more risky than illustration. That's one definition anyway, the difference between the two. All right, and we have also here some curtains. Let me pull up my stack of reference and find the curtain page. Here it is. Oh, wait, there's more than that. She sent me, there's 2 curtain pages. There we go. All right, 2 pages with curtain information. So with each layer, with each subsequent darker watercolor pencil drawing, I want to get more accurate and more detailed in my drawing. Make sense? So let's turn on the lights now. Turn off this, turn on these, whoops, and see how that looks. Right, so far so good. Now, what color next? I started with yellow, went to green. Logically, the next color would be blue, but logic is not always the driving force in this wild and wacky world of what I call watercolor sketch. By the way, you can ask me, where did you learn this technique? And the answer is, I made it up. I think I'm done tracing. So here's, let me show you the back side of this. This is the drawing that I've been tracing for the last 20 minutes or so. It's right here. This is printed off my computer, right? Because it's slightly larger than here's the print. Here's the, whoops, it's backwards, sorry. Here's the drawing. I often do that trick as well, turn a drawing upside down on a light table. I got addicted to the light table as a tool. Man, I think in the for sure in the 70s. I'm trying to remember if it was early or late 70s, a long time anyway. Long time ago. So for the rest of this process, I'm going to just have this up here in front of me, looking at it and drawing directly on the paper. And by the way, I think I'm going to go with purple. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? So yellow, green, and purple. Now, if you're an artist, if you're a color person, you're scratching your head and you're saying, okay, yellow plus green plus purple, what color does that make? Well, you know exactly what it makes. It makes a brown, mousy gray brown mess. How in the world can I possibly be thinking that this is going to be an attractive effect? Well, in fact, it is. Because, and so I guess the real simple explanation is, sure, if I took a big wet brush, like I'm going to do in a little while, with water, and just rubbed and rubbed and rubbed and rubbed and rubbed, so all the lines disappeared, yeah, then we would just get a mousy, gray, brown mess, because purple plus yellow makes brown, plus green, so I'd get just a greenish brown. How many think greenish brown is a great Well, it can be, sure. Every color is beautiful in its own way. Every color is beautiful in its own way. I'm sure that just blesses your socks off right there. Every time I break out in song, it's time to go to a new channel. Maud, what do you say we change channels? And Maud thoroughly agrees with you. But, of course, I'm not going to just rub and rub and rub. So the effect will be when this is done, of course, it's always a little bit of a surprise. That's part of the fun of this particular technique, is you never know exactly what's going to happen. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the thrill of good artwork, is generally is you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Let me put it this way. Let's talk about this for a minute. Again, this touches on what is turning into one of my major, probably, life theses. First half of your art journey, you're learning how to paint stuff that looks like stuff, or draw stuff that looks like stuff, right? Second half of your art journey, if you're lucky enough to make the jump to hyperspace, which many do not, and that's all right. Maybe they were put on the planet to, stay in the first half, and who am I to judge? I'm not going to, but most of you should be aiming for second half of art journey. In the second half of your art journey, you're not painting stuff that looks like stuff. You're painting stuff that looks like paint. All right, and this is what I just got started a few minutes ago, is a corollary to that. Imagine this with me. Imagine this scenario. By the way, I'm going back and forth between my control grip and my freedom grip. That's a better name for this. This is the freedom grip, and this is the control grip. There's a place for both. All right. Need my curtains again. Imagine yourself doing a painting or a drawing. Let's say painting. When you're all done, you close up your paints, you clean your brushes, you sit back, you fold your arms and look with great satisfaction upon your creation. And if you say to me, every single mark on that canvas came out of my head. Every single mark was planned. Every single mark was thought out ahead of time. And believe me, there are many paintings where this is the case. This could truly be stated. Every single mark and brushstroke on that canvas was premeditated, was planned, was mapped out, was marked out, was executed with control. Okay? And some of you who are, this will be an indicator if you are still in the first half of your art journey, and no shame, by the way, no shame in being in the first half. In fact, I think the only way you can go to the second half is if you successfully navigate the first half. All right. But if this is the way you feel, then you're in your first half. If you think, okay, that would be, oh my goodness, that would be perfect. If I could stand back and look at a finished painting and fold my arms across my chest, nod with satisfaction and say, yes, every mark on that painting came out of my head, then what you're looking at, well, is a first half of art journey painting. What you're looking at could be exquisitely realistic painting, or exquisitely executed abstract painting, if you will. And if you're a good planner, if you have good stuff in your head, then no doubt there will be some very fine things on that canvas or paper, it's watercolor, on that finished work. There will be some very, very fine passages like, wow, I am really proud of that stroke right there, or that little triangle area right there. I'm very happy with the way that area right there turned out. And that's fine, that's good. I'm not putting that down. But let me tell you what will be missing, so to speak, from such a painting. It can be impressive. It can indeed, and if you're good, will indeed be impressive. That is what super realists create. Impressive stuff. People look at a super realistic painting and go, wow. Wow. Look how much time, look how much skill, look how much attention to detail, right? And again, we all derive pleasure from that. Wow, including myself. Okay, so I'm not again not putting this down. But what could possibly be missing? And get a little bit spooky here, just a little bit. What will be missing? Hang on, I need to pick up my reference again. I'm drawing this ottoman. Footstool, that's not the word. Ottoman. What will be missing from such a piece of art? Almost always, in my opinion, and that is a sense or an air of transcendence. Something that goes beyond, if you will, the mere mortal. Now, see, you can see now why I'm going to be a little bit creepy, spooky for some of you at that point, because you're just not comfortable with any talk of anything invisible. That's because of your journey and so forth. All the best things in life are invisible. All of the best things in life are invisible. Love, loyalty, honor, magnanimity, transcendence, all those things are, everything you really want in life is invisible. All right. So among those invisible things in life is transcendence, an air, a sense of this is bigger than you and me. Now, okay, so here I sit today. It's kind of funny, kind of ironic to be talking this way when here I am, for goodness sake, doing an architectural rendering of an interior of a house that hasn't been built. And on the one hand, you could say, talk about banal, talk about mundane. Good grief, Dan, you're doing an architectural rendering. You can't get much more banal than that. And I would say, yep, you're right. That's part of the reason, though, why it's my job and not yours. Woo! Sting. I didn't really see that coming. I didn't mean. That's why I'm being paid decent money to do this, and maybe you're not. Because my job is to take this banal subject matter and at least try. Now, the thing about transcendence is you really can't make it happen. You really can't. You can't. If you're a musician, every concert you go into, if you're a professional musician, you are hoping, wishing, wanting, praying that this performance will be transcendent. But you really can't make it happen. All the practice in the world is just practice to get you in a position where hopefully you can do such a thing. But there's no guarantee. There is no, I'm enough of a musician to know. All those performers, they're all hoping that something magic, that the magic is, it's beyond the page, it's beyond the practice room, it's beyond the expected, it's beyond, if you will, the mere mortal, bonds of human experience. The transcendent things are, whoa, transcendent. Well, was I not broadcasting for a while there? Good grief. I had to change a setting on my phone. I believe I got a text, and the text sent me off. Have you guys been with me for the last 15 minutes or I've been talking to myself. That grieves me deeply. All right, I'm not going to repeat everything. I'm just going to say my job is to take an ostensibly banal job, subject matter, and turn it into something a little bit beyond, something transcendent. And for that to happen, there need to be surprises. Surprises to me. I don't mean surprises to you guys. Everything's a surprise to you guys because you're not doing it. There needs to be something that surprises even me. And one of those things is going to be what happens when I wet yellow, green, and purple. What do they call this? Periwinkle blue. Watercolor pencils. And we see at that moment what happens. I am so sorry, you guys, if the monitor in my ear is supposed to tell me when that happens. Nothing wrong with me that a producer wouldn't fix. So, but as you know, I'm a one-horse operation. Nay, say it ain't so. Winnie, Winnie. Let's look up those lamps again. Where did my lamps go? Hang on. There we go. This is what I'm looking at. Forgive me, I'm going to have to restart my iPad so that I catch all of your chats. I'm missing a moment. Time to sharpen this pencil. Very technical operation. Not. I was talking the other day at the art class I was teaching in Boone, North Carolina. Beautiful town up in the mountains. And several of my students laughed, the laugh of identification when I talked about the artists, the art professors who frown, scowl at pencil sharpeners. If you're a real artist, you're not supposed to use a pencil sharpener. You're supposed to use a knife. I'll tell you one of the things. Tell you a little bit about what, just since you're listening. Since I got what's it like to be one of the funny little things what's it like to be Dan Nelson? My whole life, ever since childhood, certainly since I was a teenager, I've had a very distinct set of interests, very strong interests, very distinct, and unlike most people, how can I say this without sounding weird, I excelled in at least 3 different categories of life, each of which most people who excel at one of these, that's their whole life. So those 3 areas were art, as you can imagine, music, as you've heard me talk about, art, music, and distance running. Like I was my school's, #1 distance runner my senior year. I was first chair trumpet. I won the senior art award, that kind of thing. And so a little bit different than most people because I had distinct areas of talent and interest in several of them. One of the things that has done for me is it's saved me from being a snob in any one of those areas. Or, to use a nicer word, it's kept me from being an enthusiast about any one of those areas. I'm going to come back in a minute to, how did I get on this? Oh yeah, about art professors that sneer, turn up their nose. There's the problem. Art professors that turn up their nose at pencil sharpeners. Okay, I'm laughing. You can tell maybe I think that's silly. But I can tell you where that style of thinking, that kind of thinking, can tell you where it comes from. It comes from being an enthusiast, or more specifically, it comes from being a one-horse show. It comes from being a person who is a little bit too exclusively focused on one narrow area of life. And I'm not, let me, I don't want to be mean, but this is human nature, and I have plenty of my own weaknesses and foibles, believe me. But most people who are snobs, they are snobs because they're not broad enough in their interests. They're too focused on one discipline, one human discipline. And I was going to say, a lot of people who are enthusiasts, they're not even that good at their area of enthusiasm. In fact, it's part of the reason why they are enthusiasts. So it's real easy to describe. It's the guy that can tell you, or girl, who can tell you every baseball, football, or basketball statistic, going back decades. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that person carries that expertise over into snobbery, then in my book, there is something wrong with that. And that is often the case. That's often what happens. Every major league pitcher and their batter and their batting average, and pitcher and their ERA and all that kind of stuff. And then they begin to turn up their nose at everything else. Oh yeah, I'm trying to think of an old baseball name right now. Let's say Barry Bonds. Oh yeah, Barry Bonds. No, he wasn't really that good. He broke the record for home runs or something like that 15 years ago. Anyway, but it's the attitude, it's the snobby attitude that is not good. All right, that's enough. I'm going to talk about that. So professors who scoff at, say, using pencil sharpeners, that's just silly. That's snobbery, and they need to go get a life. That's a common expression, isn't it? But it's pretty true. All right. I digress. If you didn't want to hear somebody digressing, you wouldn't be watching my channel. I know. I'm still working at getting my chats up and running so I can see what any of you might be saying. All 5 of you who are just burning up the YouTube channel, I tell you. Just burning it up. It's setting record. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate you 5 that are watching. And a couple hundred will watch usually after the live is over. All right, so here I am. Let's stop here for a minute. Talk about where I go from here. I have to think I have options. Trying to think about it. One is I'm going to do pen and ink again. Let me show you an example of this technique that I did last Saturday in front of the class. You see the black line work in there? Yeah. I'm still thinking. What I'm thinking is, do I want to do ink right now, or should I go straight to watercolor and then come back to ink? Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, because this drawing is quite tight, as you can see, quite accurate, quite tight. Get the glove off for the moment. And many people, I suspect, there we go, now I've got all your static seems okay. Watching from Oxford, Mississippi, about 5 minutes ago. Welcome, Debbie. I'm thinking again, bear with me. Got a fairly large brush, but you know what? It's not large enough, so give me a minute. I'm gonna run across my office here, go to my large watercolor equipment. I want a bigger brush. There we go. There we go. A 3-inch brush. I'm going to raise you guys up a little bit, because I'm standing up now. And I'm going to enliven my watercolor tray over here. Brush is wet. I've got some yellow ochre and some other kind of yellow. Okay, back over now to the drawing. I'm going to spritz the whole thing. You see the watercolor pencil is already beginning to bleed. Okay, now the walls are going to have a golden color. So those are walls. The carpet on the floor is going to have likewise, maybe a little bit browner than that. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And be honest, did that surprise anybody? Of course it did. Don't sit there and say, oh, that's what I was going to do. Because I know it's not. Let me give you a bit of my insight into my life, thinking, world. Here it is. The more accurate or tight the illustration is, in this case, or the drawing, the more accurate or tight the drawing. And you see that the purple drawing, it was, I did the drawing 3 times. Yellow very loose, green medium loose, and purple quite tight. The tighter or more accurate the drawing is, the looser and the freer the washes can be. I'm going to graduate to a smaller brush now, all the way down to a 2-inch. There's going to be this chair is greenish, tree and chair, and what do you call that footstool thing? I even mentioned it a while ago and I forgot it again. my art brain is hard at work, so my language brain takes a vacation. The curtains, let me look at the curtains again. I think everything in this, most things in this scene, in this house, are warm, brownish, of various shades of brown. And I do think the curtains are slightly darker than the walls. Okay, once again, some of the best, most beautiful aspects of a two-dimensional painting or drawing comes from the juxtaposition. Did I overpronounce it enough for you? The juxtaposition of tight and loose. So that's why I'm so free. All right, I think that's enough for right now. Do not leave your wooden handle brushes sitting in water, even for 5 minutes. Whew. All right, sitting back down. Forgive me, I'm going to keep broadcasting, but I need to dry this with a hair dryer. So very sorry about the bad noise. Just a minute, and we'll be done. Sorry about the noise. All right, whew, I think that's good enough. It's barely good enough. Whoops, that glove got a wet finger, so that's no good anymore. I wear these gloves, of course. These are, you buy them 30 for $2 or something at Walmart or Dollar Tree or something, and then cut off these fingers and just leave that one so that I don't get oil onto the paper. And y'all, I'm Ottoman. Thank you, Uncle 60. That's right, it's an Ottoman. All right, now I'm finally ready to graduate to some pen and ink. And I was going to say earlier, I imagine that most people, most viewers, whoops, is that, you know what, that's not dry enough. I am so sorry, guys. I am so sorry. I know I could pause, but I get technical issues. So I need to dry this some more. Sorry about that. Sorry. All right, let's try that. Again, sorry for that horrible noise. Let me go somewhere else. Okay, I was starting to say, I strongly suspect that most people who would look at a pen and ink and watercolor drawing, illustration, painting would assume that the pen and ink was done first. In other words, the drawing was done first, and then the painting was done afterwards. Very much like they grew up with coloring books, right? In a coloring book, the lines are already there, and then it's just your job to color in the lines. Do you remember that from childhood? Remember that expression? You know, the sibling, usually the oldest sibling in the house, was the best at coloring books as they grew up because he or she was older. And they were best because they could color in the lines the best. Do you remember that childhood way of thinking? And unfortunately, some people never quite grow out of that. Anyway, but much to their surprise, I do, as you saw, I do much of the painting first, and the ink, the pen and ink line drawings second. I had a hard time getting that word out there for a minute, didn't I? Second. But let me tell you a little bit more insight into the way at least this artist thinks. If you were to say, what's the best way to do it? Ink first or paint first? And the answer is both. Go back and forth and back. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do just enough ink to sort of get myself started, if you will. And I'm going to abandon the ink and go back to painting, and then back and forth and back and forth several times. And that is what I think is the best. The best way to work in pen and ink when you're doing pen and ink and watercolor. Don't do all the ink and then do the pen. Don't do all the pen and then don't do all the ink and then the paint. Don't do all the paint and then the ink. Go back and forth. All right, now let me keep my wits about me here. I am going to try to discipline myself to do only about 1/3 of this drawing in ink. Of course, I'm going to come back a couple of more times and do ink, a couple more times. But even having said that, even with that, I do not want to ink the whole thing. Why? Boring, predictable, expected, boring, predictable. So instead, I actually want to draw only where I'll get most bang for my buck, so to speak. So certainly thinking in terms of like focal point, primary area of interest, so forth. That's where I want to be doing more detail, more contrast, more accuracy. So that's, you know, pretty much in this bed area. Let it fade out down here. Let it fade out up here. How much? I don't know. I'll just try to do it one step at a time and hope that I make good decisions as I go. All right, now quick for explanation for especially watercolor people. This is, I should have said this before now. So part of my watercolor sketch technique, and let me again pull up a couple real quick demos that I did on Saturday, is that I allow myself to use white, opaque white. So this is Watercolor for Dummies, Idiot's Guide to Watercolor Painting, because as you watercolors all know, the hardest part of watercolor is saving your whites. Well, I did actually, some of this is saved, so to speak. There's some of these light areas, but you can probably tell some of this white was added later. Same thing here. I mean, this was all, well, this was lifted out, but generally this light area was saved, but all these little white details, those were added later. So again, that's what I give myself permission to do in this technique, and I sure hope that my client likes it. This is the piece that my client, Kristen up in Connecticut, this is the watercolor that she saw that prompted her to give me a call. And indeed, I can see here there's no ink at all up in this area. None, very none, but it's all focused right in here. So I did follow that general thinking a couple years ago when I did that wedding painting up in Connecticut. Our eye, of course, I mean our brain actually, but our eye has the most fun in visual art, in two-dimensional art. I don't even want to approach the subject of three-dimensional art. In two-dimensional art, the eye has the most fun when it's called upon to finish the image. You might even zoom in here and see the difference between how I rendered this railing. Again, let me show you a picture of the bed. Here's the photograph that I have for reference. Okay, so I'm not going to try to draw each of those turn spindles, every one of those curves. No, I just want to give the general impression. Oh my goodness. And yet I rendered this, the head of the bed, considerably more loosely than the foot of the bed, because the foot of the bed is closer to the viewer. I often do just a little bit of cross-hatching in my pen and ink water. Let me look at this again, see if I did any here. No, I don't see any in that painting. This, by the way, was fairly large, like 22 by 30 full sheet of watercolor paper is the size of that rendering. So you can see here, I'm holding my pen in what I call the death control grip, which is usually I reserve for the later stages of the drawing, which that's what this is. This is later stages. But you can see, I hope you can see, the funky way, if you will, that I'm rendering, say, these pictures on the wall with frames around them, right? Lots of broken lines. Some double lines, some broken lines, some slashy lines, and so forth. The essence of good drawing is making interesting marks. Same thing as painting. The essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And then, if those interesting marks can, much to our wondering eyes should appear, much to our surprise, look exactly like something, then that's the best of both worlds. So of course I want this to look like a grouping of paintings or photographs or something on the wall, framed or matted. Right? It does look like that. I'm far from finished. I'm going to do more watercolor painting and whiteout, or white of some kind. Does that make sense? So I've still got several layers to go. I just really have to be careful here that I don't just, so to speak, put my head down, especially when I'm talking to you guys. Forget myself and just draw. Next thing I know, I lift up my head and go, oh my goodness, I overdrew. I drew too much. Here's this kind of reference with the curtains. There's what Neil, I forgot his name. It'll come to me in a minute. Again, my art brain and my language brain. Dear old friend of mine, sort of, I would consider one of my mentors in the realm of watercolor. Sorry, I'll come back to me. I'll mention it. I've mentioned him before. He was a friend back in the early to mid 90s. Fairly well-known artist. He's in, several of the art magazines and so on. He did watercolor, pen and ink and watercolor. That's why his name and fame and reputation. He passed away tragically, much too young, several years ago in England. Anyway, he said for every definitive mark that you make, you should make an art mark. Now, I think he was exaggerating. I don't think it's a 1-to-1 ratio, but then again, the older I get, for instance, my oil painting, where I feel like much more advanced than in my watercolor painting, I'm discovering that 1-to-1 ratio is not a bad. It may not be as much of an exaggeration as I had thought. actually want to do a little bit of spattering here. I may save that for a later stage. And I am right now, I'm in danger of drawing too much. So let me think what really needs to be drawn here. And I'll stop at that. Certainly some of this chair. I can't leave, I don't think I can leave that as abstract as it is. A little bit more of the desk. I'm sure I violated my my 1/3 rule. I've drawn more than 1/3, and yes, that gives me pause, as you can see and hear. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So that's the end of the pen and ink. Oops, no, it's not. I need to do some of this light up here. Okay, and then, and I don't need to do the whole light though, right? Again, if I can use the verbiage I've been using a lot lately, a person in the first half of their art journey, their whole goal is to paint, or in this case, draw stuff that looks like stuff. So the person in that stage of their journey wouldn't even consider, you know, leaving half of this light fixture undrawn. That's unthinkable. In the second half, all the rules change, and the goal is not now to make stuff that looks like stuff, paint stuff that or draw stuff that look. Now the goal is to draw stuff that looks like pen and ink and watercolor. And I think I'm getting your chats okay, but I've got on my, unfortunately, on my iPad, I'm just getting a spinning circle. I think, Karen, thank you for joining me. I think that's the last comment I see. Marco Piccioni, thanks for the piece. You are very welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for acknowledging that it's peaceful. By the way, there's going to be a pattern. One of the last things I'm going to do is a pattern in the wallpaper. And not with ink. I'll be doing that with pretty carefully with watercolor only. I'm just thinking here where to go from here, what to do next. Let's tackle some of this black bed. So break out the black paint. That was a joke. That was a joke just for you newcomers or whatever. Of course you don't break out the black paint. But it's dark though. I'm doing some dark stuff. All you watercolor people know one of the most deceptive aspects of watercolor paint is that you put it down and it looks so nice and dark, and you put it down and then it dries and goes, what happened to my nice dark stuff? Now it's all just kind of mid-tone, right? Do I get a hearty amen from one of you watercolorists? Yeah. I call it the Barbara Streisand syndrome. Misty watercolor memories. That is an insult, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever wrote that song was insulting all watercolorists. But at the same time, they were accurately describing most watercolors that they had seen. So, tragically true. Way too many watercolors are misty, as in the song. I know I'm showing my age. Everybody under 40 is going, What? What? What are you talking about? There was this woman named Barbara Streisand. There still is. She still is a woman. There still is a woman named Barbara Streisand, to tell you the truth. Okay, this small brush. That'd be driving me crazy. Let's get to something more appropriate here. Again, the tighter the illustration or the drawing is, then the looser other things can be. And especially where I've done ink now, as you can see, are we getting static still? Let me unplug this. Oh my goodness, we were getting static. Sorry about that, and I just see your comment now, Nightingale. I'm sorry. Okay, that's a power plug issue. Sorry about that, you guys. Sorry it took me so long to catch it. All right, so now we're good. No static, but my battery will only last but so long, and I will suddenly disappear on you. And won't that be sad? Now, really, tell me. So my minutes are numbered. How many minutes can I go? I need to get back to my big brush. And now lift out. Now, if you do this, pen and ink and watercolor, of course, you need to be very careful that your ink is truly waterproof. And not all ink that is labeled waterproof is actually waterproof. I don't know how they can get away with that, but evidently they can. They've been doing it a long time. So you have to test the ink. And I think sometimes it may be a case of, well, if you wait, you know, a certain number of minutes or hours or something, then it will be waterproof. But of course, that doesn't do for me. I mean, you know, I've got to get this thing done. I don't have minutes or hours to wait for. So anyway, the ink I'm using, since I bring that up, that I'm pretty happy with. Again, this is a Jerry's Artorama product. Sorry, the label's all dirty. It's very cleverly named, I'm being facetious, Pen and Ink Sketch. Non-shellac. That's important because if a lot of ink has shellac, and if it does, if it has shellac, it'll gunk up your fountain pen. Perfectly, shellac ink, perfectly good for a dip pen, but not for a fountain pen. And it says fountain pen ink, permanent and light fast, also for use with dip pens. Well, there you go. Ideal for sketching. Dry ink does not bleed when used with a wash. Made in China. For art supply enterprises. There you go. Now you got all the pen-friendly filler bottle. Anyway, there are a lot of inks out there. You know, the workhorse, the most common is this. Sorry, no label. Techno Art waterproof ultra black rapidograph ink, or India ink. All right, so much for the commercials. Yeah, well, tell you what, I need to do a little break for several things. One, I'm going to see if I can get my iPad functioning properly. Not terribly happy with how that railing came out. So I'll be messing with that some more. I'm liking this area, the abstraction of that quite a bit. I need to do more drawing over here. But what I really need to do before I proceed, I have pages and pages and pages of, I tried to remember to print out everything that Kristen gave me, my client gave me. And I've got about 10 pages of notes here. And I just need to go through those and make sure that I'm remembering things. There are little bits of color everywhere that she specified. Green chair, green pillows, black and brown pillows, and so forth. And I just am afraid and this is also wet, I need this to dry. So, quick break. I will be back, I promise, in at least 15 minutes, probably less than that. All right? Thank you for your chats and your comments. And wait, Uncle 60, do they sell a filter for your plug to reduce noise? They probably do. They probably do, Uncle 60. I need to go. I've tried. I've looked somewhat. Someone has told me in months past that was available. I haven't found it yet, so I'll try again. Thanks, guys. Be back in 10 or 15 minutes. Bye-bye.